So what's the point of table groups? What are they? That's a great question. It's a great question because most quality questions kind of demand a complex answer, in my experience at least. And so like when I hear that question, I just want to just start sermonizing, for 6 hours on kind of why it's so important. But fundamentally I'll say this, that being a Christian is fundamentally a relational activity. It starts with the invitation to be invited into the relationship with a relational being, God. We use the word Trinity. It's a being who's able to relate within himself with himself. It's a little bit overwhelming, but to be a Christian is to be called into fellowship, meaning into deep connectedness, right? And so, I don't have time to do all the sermonizing, but I'll just say that, when Jesus summarizes what it is to follow all the rules that people want to hammer on and, make signs on, the one that you don't ever see signs about is, to love your neighbor as yourself. And the reason that it's such a profound thing is because, to love a neighbor means to have to get to know a neighbor, right? It has to be in proximity, right? To spend time with, to listen to, if you've had friendships or you've parented or you have a spouse, you've learned that, to love someone, often you have to learn how that person needs to be loved. And so foundationally, as Christians, we are incapable of being Christians, of following Christ, without being willing and able to commit our lives to entering into relationship. And what's beautiful about that is often in churches we miss that call to relationship is not just called to relationship with God. It's called to be in relationship with those around us. Again, Jesus is very clear on this. All the parables are all relationally oriented, right? And so, before we had a Bible, before we had altar calls or worship teams, with fog lights, we had a practice called Eucharist, and it took place at a physical table, and it was meant to be symbolic, but also to be lived out. Meaning, it was symbolic that we were to be living in a way that we were seated at a table with God. Meaning, in a way where our focus is completely on the other person. We're not busy doing other things, but we're focused on God. And that at that table, even the way that Jesus teaches us to be at the table with God is to be at the table with our neighbors, the people around us, and that's how the church was formed. We learn how to be in communion with God as we are in communion or in relationship with people, and of course vice versa. In relationship with people, we learn how to be in relationship with God, and it's very different to be at a table that is centered on Christ than to be at any other table, right? Because to be at a table centered on Christ means that we're learning how to be with other people in a way that loves them first before ourselves, that puts their needs first. And so in this way, table fellowship, meaning to sit down with at least one other person or family, table group is to meet consistently with one other person or family and to practice what it is to be present with them, to listen to them, to talk with them, to share your life with them, and to learn how to love them the way that they need to be loved. And in a way, that is the most Christian thing that you could possibly do. In the scriptures, we see that's exactly what they do. In the book of Acts, that's how it all starts. It starts with meals, and at the table, as they enjoy each other's company and the presence of the Spirit of God, they begin to discuss the teachings of Jesus. And that's how the whole thing starts. And throughout most of the New Testament, that's where church happened, in homes. And it wasn't until hundreds of years later until we began to meet in things that we would call a church. And so it's not that this is bad, but I think it's a beautiful time for us to get back to our roots and really to get back to the thing that all of us need, which is learning how to have friends. As a pastor, I meet so many adults who are deeply lonely, and because they have never prioritized friendship, and that is a big part of being a Christian. if we understand that it's important, these table things are important, scriptural, all that kind of stuff, but how do we get involved, right? How do we actually do the thing? You have kind of like two options, right? To join a group or to start a group. But really, the first step is the hardest. And it's, to do the soul work, the heart work, the mind work of being willing, right, to participate. It's an interesting thing, right? Because we're just looking for something new. We're exhausted. We don't have time or energy to get to know people or clean the house, whatever, And so we just, let's just go to a church that's meeting on Sundays, right? Because it's normal, And so again, I think the place it starts is there, right? If you are hung up, if you're not wanting to, then I think just taking a few minutes to kind of ask the question, why? Why am I so resistant to this thing that I know is in the scriptures? I know that I need, deep friendship. I want that. I'm just too whatever that is. I think that's the first place to start. But, after you get to the place where you are willing and ready to jump in, I think the easiest route is to start a group. Because again, if you're single, just looking for like one or two other people. If you have a family, just trying to start with one other family. I don't want you to have the image of a life group where we have like 6 or 7 families and we gotta get the house clean, we gotta make meals. That's not sustainable. I want us to have something that isn't a burden, right? It's still gonna be a challenge because of the emotional challenge of it, right? But I don't want it to be a drain on our time, energy, and resources, okay? So start one, meaning, if you're willing to host in your home, and if you already know a family, who's in the church or maybe not in the church, but you already hang out with them, you already know them, right? Then do it. Invite them over for Sunday, eat together. Don't clean the house, don't freak out. Things don't have to be perfect, just invite them over, watch a service, eat together, have a good time. Start there, right? And then if you're ready to do that, we have a place on the Church Center app. There's going to be a number we're going to flash where you can register your group so that we can be in communication with you. If you're willing to start a group and host, but you don't know anyone, you can't think of a neighbor, family, friends to have over, then the same thing. There's going to be a number flashing. You can text that number. The Church Center app, and basically what we'll do is we'll kind of list your house as an open group. And for anyone else who's struggling to think of or to find someone to meet with on a Sunday, they're going to find you. If you're not able to host in your home right now, but you still want to be a part of a group, the same thing. You can contact the number or on the app, and we're going to kind of help you find a listing of homes that are open, that are willing to add someone into their group, so you can join that way. And so, honestly, it's really just a matter to you of whether or not you're willing to engage in this kind of deep way of following Christ. That's the biggest issue. If you're willing to do it, that actually having you start is a very simple process that we will help you with.